piano roll is a much misunderstood medium. There are different kinds of piano rolls, but the basic piano roll is really like a piece of sheet music. The information on it represents only the notes, their duration, and when they occur. It doesn't contain any coloration, any dynamics, any expression. But the person operating the player piano that's playing that roll can inject all those things by the use of the hand controls and the foot pedals. There are a number of levers to control sustain pedal, soft bass, soft treble, and tempo. And by manipulating those, you can shape the performance to sound like what you want it to sound like. The craft of making rolls, there are a couple different approaches. Sometimes it begins with a person playing the piano, and there are means of recording that mechanically onto a roll. Or it can be completely conceived and executed without a performance, at a drafting table more or less, where the notes are plotted out. And one method is not necessarily superior to the other. They both have assets and liabilities. The length of time it takes to make a roll it depends on the complexity of it and the methodology being used, but as a sort of rule of thumb, it might take 8 hours to record a 3-minute song, something like that. I'm going to play Floque Sal Levalis. I'm a musician, but my gifts are limited. And the player piano could do things that I couldn't do. For one thing, it has an infallible memory, so there's never a memory lapse. And that was always my problem, I think, was that in playing the piano, I would panic and you know, the memory of what I was playing would slip away, and I would be embarrassed by, you know, stopping in the middle of a performance. With the player piano, it never forgets. So it quickly struck me as a way that I could express myself musically without the fear of memory lapses. I think that's really what got me into it. What is my favorite role? Wow, that's a tough question. I've played thousands and thousands of roles. Maybe the most special is a piece called A Gute Nacht der Kalle in dem Hussen, A Good Night to the Bride and Groom in Yiddish. And it's a piece that would have been played at the conclusion of a wedding celebration. And it exists only on the roll that I found. It had never been published, apparently, and so I was able to sort of restore this piece to the klezmer canon by finding and recording that roll. I've come to think of the player piano as sort of an ear witness to history. So you can tell any story about the 20th century that you want through the music that you can play on the player piano. So I have projects that talk about jazz history, or that talk about rock and roll history, or that talk about attitudes in the Americas during World War I or World War II. Classical music is a great field because there was a great deal of interest in the player piano by contemporary composers in the 20th century, so there's very interesting material available there. I'm working with a man who plays a theremin cello, and we're developing the literature for player piano and theremin cello. Accompanying vocalist is a wonderful thing to do. You can do it with turn-of-the-century song or art song or anything else. There's really no end, you know, to what you can do. With any musical instrument, it's only limited by the imagination of the person playing it. One of my ongoing interests is ethnic music for the player piano. It's been sort of ignored. Roll collectors have tended to concentrate on early blues and jazz performances and ragtime, and all of the ethnic music that was produced in the 20s has been sort of ignored. And it's great. I find it very interesting, and I'm cultivating the interest of different groups in their musics, which we're rediscovering on piano rolls. To stimulate interest in the field, I donated about 1,000 different ethnic piano rolls to the UCLA Ethnomusicology Archive. And then it turned out that a Lithuanian musicologist, Dr. Darius Kučinskas, learned of the existence of these piano rolls, and so we were put in touch, and he's engaged me to record some of these rolls for not just for archival purposes, but he's actually issued CDs of them. The project is ongoing, yes. After the first batch, I think he found, like me, that the player piano is a very happy addiction, and that after this first batch of Lithuanian rolls, he dug up another. So we're recording a second batch. There were over 50 in the first batch and over 70 in the second batch. Once you delve into older recordings, you begin to discover what else is available, and the phonograph is the place to look. The history of the phonograph also includes the issuing of ethnic musics, but also popular musics and classical music and great artists throughout the century, throughout the 20th century, and they can all be heard on old records. So I do collect them, and then when you collect different records from different technological developments, then you have to collect the phonographs to play them. So I have a variety of phonographs so that I can play the old records that I've collected. This is an Edison cylinder phonograph. Many people are unaware that the first records that you could buy and the first record players you could buy played a cylinder record rather than a flat disc record. And you would slip it on like this. In this case, you close this little gate and you turn it on and then lower the stylus on the record. After the cylinder record, the flat record was developed, and this is actually from about the same time as there were Edison cylinder phonographs being made while this was being made as well, but the flat record sort of gained dominance in the market, and eventually cylinders came to an end. This is the last of the non-electric phonographs. The records made for it were recorded electrically. That was what was new. But the phonograph itself is still a spring-wound machine And the amplification is completely done without electricity. Inside this big case is just a big wooden horn, but you get a very realistic sound.
There she is, that's what keeps me up at night. Oh gee whiz, that's why I can't eat a bite. Those flaming eyes, that flaming youth. Oh mister, oh sister, tell me the truth. Now ain't she sweet, see her coming down the street. I ask you confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. I ask you confidentially, ain't she nice? Cast an eye in her direction. Oh my, ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? I ask you confidentially, ain't she sweet? Tell me where, have you seen one just like that? I declare, that sure is worth looking at. Oh boy, how sweet those lips must be. Oh, gaze on it, doggone it, answer me. Ain't she sweet? See her coming down the street. I ask you confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. I ask you confidentially, ain't she nice? Just cast a little line in her direction. Oh me, oh my mama, ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? I ask you confidentially, ain't she sweet? Just cast an eye, why, in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? I ask you confidentially, ain't she